Hello everybody and welcome back. Thank you very much for joining me. It was jet black and looked like a giant wolf. Llangollen, Wales, 2019. What I was looking at was jet black and it looked like a giant wolf, but it was walking upright on two legs. It had big broad shoulders and arms. It had a thin waist compared to the rest of its body. Witness report. I live in North Wales in the mountains, not far from Llangollen. This is a new home for us and we have lived here for almost a year now. It's a very old house that no one has lived in for 30 years before us, and it's built in between two old yew trees. We have 4 acres of woodland coppice behind the cottage that looks back onto a wood that leads to the forest nearby. And when we moved in, I started to explore the land beyond the garden near the house and work out where I was going to put the polytunnel and plan the possibility of creating a forest garden. Sort out some clearing space for things, as it's pretty wild and thick with brambles, etc. back there. I'm a herbalist, so I grow and forage almost daily. As soon as I went up to the first level and looked to the left, where it was quite heavily wooded and dark around the rhododendron bush, I felt immediately uneasy, which is odd for me because I love the woods and I go out foraging, etc. and I've always felt at home out and about in wilderness. A few days after clearing the space for the polytunnel, we had a bonfire to get rid of all the brash and the rubbish from the garden. It was damp, so the fire made a lot of smoke until it eventually got itself going and it burnt down. It was getting dark and I needed to put the tea on. So I left my partner to keep an eye on the fire and off I went. A good 20 minutes later, he came running into the house saying something was sliding down the bank towards him, but he couldn't see a thing. He could hear it, and he could tell it was getting nearer and nearer, and he was really genuinely scared as he couldn't see anything. The next thing that happened was when I was sat up in the hazel coppice, just chilling out, watching the squirrels, and all of a sudden there was a big whoosh next to me that came from behind me as if something big had flown past my head. I could feel the wind on my face as it passed, and I really expected to see a buzzard fly down or perch in one of the trees. But there was nothing at all to be seen, and that would be impossible really because of where it would have had to fly to exit the wood. I would have seen it. It was a whooshing rush of wind, and it wasn't long after that I finally saw the creature. I was walking my dog in the late afternoon at the beginning of October this year, 2019. I decided to go down to the river, which has a small wooden bridge across it, on an ancient pathway near a very old church, not too far from our cottage. I got to where there's a big oak tree on the bank that looks down into a ravine, and the river flows through, and where the bridge is, then the trail leads off onto another pathway, which just takes you to an old farm. As I looked down towards the bridge, I could see something big and black coming down that path and running towards the bridge from the direction of the old farm. I actually thought, oh shit, because the cows roam free here and you know how they can be when dogs are around. But as it got nearer, it became clear to me that what I was looking at was jet black and it looked like a giant wolf. But it was walking upright on 2 legs. It had big broad shoulders and arms. It had a thin waist compared to the rest of its body. I cannot say that it had canine legs or front-facing knees or any of that, but it was definitely upright, just like a human would be. It stopped at the end of the path, and it was just stood looking towards the bridge, and its chest was heaving, like it was heavily breathing. I think it was just waiting there till it got its breath back. And for a few seconds, I just stared at it in disbelief, and then all of a sudden it was gone. A few weeks later, I cleared a path near a fallen spruce that leads to a gate at the end of the wood. It wasn't too much work, and after clearing brambles and bending and snapping a few branches out of the way, it was done. The next day, I went out to use the path I'd cleared, and at the entrance to it, there was a hazel branch that had been bent over and was being held down by a broken log, literally blocking the path that I'd made the day before. I went and got my partner and asked him what he thought, because to me, There was no way that that could have happened on its own, and I thought that he would have to agree. I've not moved a log or used the path because I feel something doesn't want me to start going to that part of the wood. Last summer, before I saw the creature down near the bridge, I decided to get a dog from the local rescue, and I obviously took him up to the woods to explore and have a bit of fun playing with the stick. I didn't really know why, but he kept running off, as if to chase something, and I thought it was squirrels because we have a lot of them here. But when I caught up with him, he would just stand barking with his heckles up, not at the tree but at thin air, which I thought was very odd. And day by day it got worse as he would just stand near the house barking at the fence and the gate that led to the wood. And if you took him out, the same thing over and over again. Sadly, he never settled, and we had to find a quieter home for him. We do have a new dog, and she too is experiencing things on the land and at home. I will keep you updated if anything else happens. Now, I have been in contact with this witness weekly, and there are new events, and I will keep you updated with those. And there are also other reports from the areas. One very lonely road is called the Horseshoe Pass, and a couple reported a standing bear, and that was spotted in 2007. It was reported to the Fortean Times by the couple's friend, who is a member of the Fortean Society. The other night, two of my friends were driving home over the Horseshoe Pass towards Ruthin, 1 mile past the Ponderosa Cafe. They noticed an owl on the side of the road, and they stopped for a while. And as they were accelerating away, they saw what they described to me as a bear with long forearms, walking on all fours. It came out of the hedge on the right-hand side of the road. They said it was as tall as me when it stood up on its hind legs. I'm not convinced with sightings like this, but they were absolutely adamant it was a bear. They went around the area asking people if they had strange pets which had got loose somehow. I thought they might have seen a cow or a black sheep, but they said it was at least 6 foot tall. Both of them saw it. And then I was wondering if there had been any other sightings of such a creature around these areas. In specific, I'd love to know if any farmers have had large amounts of livestock go missing. There's a big forest on the right-hand side of this road, on the side of the hill. So maybe it could live in there, he gestured. Also, the owl is significant, he thought. Maybe the animal was trying to capture it for food. Now, after this report was aired, a wild camper known as Mikey, who is a keen outdoorsman, contacted me to report something he'd seen also in a similar area. He told me he himself was certain he'd seen the same bear-like creature when he was camping. He saw a large-bodied, hair-covered creature, which was close to camp, move off into the brush. Now, this area is known for big cat sightings, and Mikey himself has seen cats in the area, one time being stalked by a big cat. In turn, he stalked that cat the day after, but he could not identify the creature he saw in 2017. Stay safe, everyone. Good night.